Howdy. Okay, this is Charlie Biney. We're back. We're going to use the same instrument here on the to do the DSC7 maintenance, calibration, and performance verification video. And just like the previous video, we're going to let you look at a bunch of slides and listen to me, and hopefully I won't stumble too much along the way. Same instrument, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing is that when you do this long enough and you see enough customers, sometimes there's confusion about the difference between a performance verification and a calibration. They're very different. With a performance verification, you want yourself a common standard. Indium is great. We love indium. It's just rock stable. We just want to make sure that the instrument is performing predictably and exactly like it's supposed to be doing. Once you've got that, and once your numbers, whatever those numbers may be, are within the calibration range, then a software calibration simply makes it right. But you want to make sure that your precision is really dead on. Whereas if you have an instrument calibration, well, now you're looking about making sure the numbers work right in your particular range, maybe your particular sample pans. Is there any special handling on this? There's just a lot of variables that go in there, which you certainly want to make sure those are right. But the number one thing you do, you need to make sure that instrument's performance verification is exactly what you expect it to be. Otherwise, this can be problematic. So, next slide, calibration and performance verifications. We're going to talk about when do you calibrate, some key calibration issues, selecting reference materials. You want to talk about calibrating at the same heating rate you can do, sample size, sample pan, and doing a performance verification. So when do you calibrate? When routine performance verification fails. Simple as that. One thing that that we don't do enough of is that part of our standard SOP. We do not properly verify that our instruments are working right before we start running samples. And every customer is going to be a little bit different, but part of your SOP, it needs to be when you start up, what is there that you do that's going to give you a high level of confidence that the instrument's running properly. Or, if you haven't done a routine performance verification, you can expect to recalibrate if any of the following has changed: your purge gas rate, your purge gas type, your heating rate, your cooling system, coolant temperature, pan material, pan type. But you want to first, before you actually go ahead, you want to first do your performance verification. So, before you calibrate, you decide that, all right, you need to calibrate your system. Don't forget the details. And the biggest one is confirm that any sample holder maintenance has already been done. A couple of decades ago, I worked on an instrument. I came up being a service guy and then went on and did other stuff. And I worked on this instrument. The sample holder was trashed, and I had been there before as a routine maintenance, and it was dead on. It worked beautiful, and they just trashed it. Somebody came in and ran the wrong material, ran too much of the material, and it overcame the system and contaminated the sample holder. And so it had been well within the 0.1 degree accuracy and precision test and on the delta H numbers before, and it was well off. So I went in and did a complete sample holder maintenance routine on this. Got it looking good again, so it looked just like it used to look, and reran performance verification. It was dead on. There was no need to go anything further than that. So don't forget the details. when you do your sample holder maintenance, there's a couple of different levels. One is, if you're one of those customers that is blessed with a simple sample, everything's clean, you got all that perfect scenario that everybody likes, and you've decided that you have that your performance verification has failed and you want to recalibrate, first thing you do is do that level 1 maintenance. You want to do a typical clean run, and if you want to make that as a regular method where you actually ramp up and stay at 100 degrees a minute and stay at, say, 600 for a few minutes, then it'll show you where contamination is coming off. If you don't want to do that, just tell it to do a clean run. You also want to, when you're ready to start doing this, you want to do a conditioning run. Make sure your baseline's in good shape, your purge gas pressures are good. Now, from that gives you a good starting point. Now, let's say you're like so many other people and you got visual contamination, and you say, all right, I really need to clean this. Then you're going to do a level 2. It's visually contaminated, you want to clean the guard rings, you need to clean the underside of the sample holder, you need to reform and clean the platinum lids, you need to do a clean run, all that needs to be in air. By the way, if you try to do a heating clean run with a DSC or a TGA or anything else, and you're in a nitrogen environment or anything else, it's not going to work so well. You really need the air or oxygen to really start burning stuff off where you should have it. So, why are you going to do the maintenance first? Well, because contamination affects the balance affects the temperature, and again, like I said about the maintenance, is you may not need to calibrate after you do routine maintenance. So let's go ahead and look at the DSC7 maintenance slide. There's not much here. It actually takes just a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, so once you've done it the first time, you can really fly through this thing. 1, clean the bottom of the cover. Basically anything that comes close to those little furnaces you want to make sure is clean. You can see the top picture there, there's a little stain. There, you clean that. That's right over the sample cell. You clean the sample and reference cups that you can see down here. Heating and air up to 600 degrees, you cool in air. If you got any debris in there, you can gently use a solvent, cotton swabs, but very gently. You don't see the platinum cut lids here, but yeah, you can. There's one right down there. You want to reform those, and you want to clean those. They should not be all bent up. We like to take them in and out with with the sample manipulators, and then take the guard rings out, and you switch them around in a solvent. Some people use a little Q-tip. My preferred method of what we do here is that we've got an ultrasonic cleaner. If you got one of those down, and just put a mild solvent in there that's going to attack the sample that you got. Drop it in there and clean it ultrasonically. It works fantastic. That's probably the best way to do it. And then put everything back together, do yourself a cleaning run, and you're ready to go. Now, we go to the next slide, you're going to see something different. You're going to see a flow-through cover. There are some people who for reasons that just exist, that they're always going to have some contamination. They have to use a particular pan. They've got a material that they have to have a higher volume of instead of running the lowest volume they can do. They have all kinds of stuff, and they inherently end up with some contamination. If that's the case, don't stick with the standard cover. Get a flow-through cover, crank up your flow rates, get rid of that stuff. You will pay for it in a heartbeat rather than gradually deteriorating your sample cell. And if you have those kind of problems and you do not set your purge gas up and let it run without a purge, you're going to ruin those very expensive sample holders. So we've done our maintenance. We want to go back, set up our initial baseline. You probably saw this in the other video. Same stuff, 80 degrees a minute. You want to get a baseline up there. You want to be able to adjust it. When you run it, and I realize this is a very nice baseline to do, you know, it's but it does show everything that you would want to know. You've got your slope and your balance. You're figuring out from the from your height, your peak height, how you're going to adjust your balance. So if it's negative, you're going to go positive. If it's positive, you're going to go negative. Go ahead and get a full range baseline and look at that first. Then, and a lot of y'all are going to be different. If you're running from -50 to 150, you're going to want you want a baseline over that range. You're going to run from 50 to 250, you run a baseline over that range. Full range may work perfect for you, but it may not. You may need a smaller range baseline. And then you want to go ahead and do a quick performance verification, make sure you're working right. Again, you saw this in the previous video. Repeat indium with a stable block temperature. This thing is dead on. We've got a reliable numbers. Now we know the instrument's working right. Now we want to calibrate it. So let's go on over the calibration issues. You know, when we're going to calibrate, the most important thing is going to be that, number one, you have a solid baseline. Number two, you're going to the best of your ability, you're going to want to bracket your sample with calibration points. DSC7 will only do two calibration points. But if you are if you're running from 50 to 250, it's real simple. You know, if you're running anywhere in the ambient region, it's a lot simpler than if you're doing going down to -50, going down to -150. Because you don't have metals that go down there. You've got your standard your indium, tin, lead, and zinc. And then if you want to get down in the lower area around room temperature, you got gallium. You want to go down around -30, you got mercury. A lot of people don't like to use mercury. It makes some great calibration material. And below that, you're talking about using organics, which are high purity organics that work great, but they take a lot more handling expertise. So we understand that's an issue, but best baseline you can, to your best ability, try to bracket your sample. And then between runs, try to cool sufficiently to be really stabilized. And if you're doing an ambient run, if you get down to 50 and the control light's on, everything's working fine, that's great. If you get down, if you're doing a subambient intercooler, once you get down to about -50, you're doing pretty good. It's always nice to go down to -65, but you below -50, you're getting pretty stable. And then LN2 getting down to about -150, you're pretty stable. But again, always use realistic calibration standards, follow baseline guidelines, and then when you're ready to go, restore your defaults before you start calibrating. And so in your calibration screen, you'll see restore up on the top file menu bar. You tell it to restore all. You save and apply that as whatever you want to call it. Don't call it default. But yeah, I like to use the date. It just shows us when it is. You don't have to say DSC unless you want to see it under the Explorer, but it'll come up as the only calibration with the DSCs. But at any rate, name it something besides your default calibration files. And then, when you're at that point, remember, we've talked about this before, you've got balance configurations. If you're going to weigh out a sample, you want to make sure it's right. You want to make sure your reference material is right. You want to use a new reference material if possible. And you're going to make sure that you're the same balance with your samples as reference materials. The next thing, remember, you've got heating rate effects. If you're going to be running samples You may be in a lab that has multiple samples. You may run some at 10 degrees a minute, some at 20, some at 40. So remember, if you're going to run at different heating rates, you're going to need different calibrations to go with the samples that you run at 20, that you run at 30 or 40. Same thing with sample size. If you're doing this for calibrating with a peak, you need to make sure that you start matching your masses up when you're doing your calibration. If your typical sample is say 10 milligrams, you want to have a 10 milligram reference material also. And then sample pan effects. Remember, you want to make sure you use the same pan to calibrate with that you use for your sample. If you can, try to run indium as one of your two reference materials. You can use it both for your delta H and as one of your two temperatures. If you can't, we understand. You know, if you need help, give us a call. We'll see what we can do to help you out with that. And but you know, it works best with a 2-point calibration. If you try to stick with it, I think you're going to be happy. Use your indium for the 1 point, and delta H, the second material, for your second calibration point. If you are to get into that calibration file, you go to the top file menu bar under methods, and you say view calibrate. When you're done, run a performance verification. Indium is great under almost all circumstances, and you're done. And that's pretty much all they're doing. I left a lot of stuff out. I left showing the software. Where the assumption is that you're going to do quick help, and you understand that. I hadn't actually gone straight through the calibration routine as far as showing it on the software, but it isn't. But you can see it in QuickBooks. It's easily to find under the method. And if there's more that you need, you know, feel free to let us know. Okay. That's the end of our DSC7 maintenance, calibration, and performance verification. We truly hope this will work for you, and if we can do anything else for you, just please give us a call at Thermal Support, contact us. Take care. Have a great day. Thank you.